Everybody, welcome back to another episode of You're Not Crazy, You're Exhausted. And today we're talking about protein. This is the protein guidelines women 40 plus actually need. This is the second episode in this series about nutritional guidelines for women over 40. This episode, I would say, is probably one of the most important in the entire series because we are talking about protein. Now, I know protein is having kind of a big moment on social media and all the things right now, but we have to understand that protein has always been important. It has just been overshadowed by carbohydrates and fats and those types of things over the years. But you cannot scroll past anything on social media without somebody talking about protein powders and protein goals and protein snacks and macros. What we need to do about this protein topic a little bit differently in this episode is to make sure we're not making this about another rigid diet conversation. I want you to understand why protein actually matters physiologically for women over 40, because once you understand it, it changes the entire conversation and helps you make sustainable changes and choices in your day to day. Because for many women, it is not about becoming obsessive, but so many people have become obsessive about these things over the years and it doesn't stick. It is about giving your body finally the raw materials it has been missing. And the truth is that most women over 40 are dramatically under eating protein, even without realizing it. So, especially women doing these things, we skip breakfast. We live on coffee during the day, especially in the mornings for sure, but in the afternoons as well to get through that day. We eat tiny little salads with very little protein on it. Doesn't really amount to a whole lot. A lot of people are constantly dieting or restricting in some way, shape, or form. That causes less protein intake to happen naturally. People are afraid of calories. We're trying to eat too little calories because we've been once told that, calories in, calories out is all that matters. And a lot of times people have this idea about being good or bad when it comes to the foods that they're eating. And then they wonder why they're exhausted, losing muscle tone, feeling super anxious or depressed, hungry all the time, craving sugar, especially at nighttime, and struggling with fat loss. This is because it feels like the metabolism has pretty much disappeared. It's gone. But protein affects far more than your muscle. It affects your metabolism. It helps your blood sugar stability. It helps you produce hormones. It helps your brain chemicals, those neurotransmitters that help your satiety and your hunger signals, your mood signals, recovery, especially after workouts, your immune function. Proteins make your antibodies, by the way, and your hair and skin health, satiety, and of course, healthy aging, which is another thing that you can't scroll too far on social media and find different products and different topics on anti-aging. So after age 40, protein becomes even more important. And I would probably argue even after age 30, because we tend to lose 3 to 8% of our muscle every decade after age 30 if we are not actively trying to not lose it. One of the biggest reasons we have this issue is because of muscle preservation. And as we age, women naturally begin losing muscle mass. This process can accelerate during perimenopause and menopause because hormonal changes affect how efficiently the body maintains our muscle tissue. Why does this matter? Because muscle is one of the biggest drivers of our metabolic health. It improves our insulin sensitivity, how well we handle glucose. It is a sponge for glucose, our muscle is. Our metabolic flexibility, your ability to go through burning fats and burning carbs, your strength, your stability, which helps with longevity, and your energy, and long-term independence as we age. And unfortunately, many women are unintentionally losing muscle while trying to lose weight. And this is what I see all the time. Women eating very low calorie diets. I am not kidding you when I say Many women are eating 800 calorie a day diets. They are different fad type diets because they have been told it's all about calories in, calories out. They will do excessive cardio at the gym or outside, wherever they need to go to do their exercise. They are skipping meals all the time, not just intermittent fasting. They are barely eating enough protein, and they're feeling frustrated because their body composition is actually getting worse instead of getting better. They may lose some weight temporarily, but they also lose muscle. And that often leaves women feeling softer and weaker, more fatigued, and over time, you become metabolically resistant. This is one of the reasons why I am talking about this, because I often say that after age 40, the goal should not just be weight loss. The goal should be preserving and building metabolically active tissue. This means muscle. Now, let's talk about blood sugar for a minute, because protein is incredibly important here too. A breakfast that is mostly carbs, like the standard American diet of breakfast is toast and cereal and pastries or just plain old fruit, tends to spike blood sugar very quickly, and then it causes a blood sugar crash. What follows are cravings, energy dips, brain fog, irritability, and hunger shortly afterward. Then you have to eat again, or you feel like you have to eat again. Protein slows digestion and helps stabilize this blood sugar response. That means you have steadier energy, fewer cravings, better appetite control, and often better mood and focus. And this is especially important for women dealing with insulin resistance, fatigue, hormone imbalance, thyroid concerns, or that midlife weight gain. And speaking of hormones, protein matters there too. Hormones are built from nutrients and amino acids, which come from proteins. Neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin also require these amino acids. So when women are chronically under eating protein, they'll notice lower stress resilience, worse mood, poor recovery, low energy, increased cravings, or difficulty maintaining that lean mass. Now, let's address one of the biggest myths I hear. This happens all the time. But I do eat protein. I eat a lot of protein. I focus on protein. And many times when we actually walk through the day, it looks something like this. Coffee for breakfast with maybe a scoop of collagen in there. That is not the same as getting real protein in your breakfast or your coffee. Salad for lunch with maybe a few bites of chicken. I know when I checked that out myself, I was getting about 3 ounces, maybe 2.5 ounces of chicken on that salad. Snack during the afternoon, maybe a beef stick, maybe some nuts, something like that, apples with peanut butter. That is not going to be enough protein. And then most of the days, protein finally comes at dinner, which is great, but it's usually in totality not enough. The body generally responds better when protein is distributed more evenly throughout the day. I always tell people to take in steady doses of protein in the form of a well-composed meal 3 times a day, maybe have a snack as well. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, and maybe a snack if needed with steady doses of protein in there is going to help you feel so much better, especially as we age. Because muscle protein synthesis, meaning the body's ability to build and repair muscle, becomes less efficient over time. So instead of trying to cram all your protein into one meal, especially those people out there doing intermittent fasting where they're doing one meal a day, we want to think about consistently giving the body the amino acids throughout the day. Now, does that mean everybody needs to obsessively track macronutrients? The answer is no. For some people, tracking can become stressful or even unhealthy, but many women do benefit from learning what adequate protein actually looks like because most have underestimated it for years. Now, I always recommend that people take 3 to 5 days, track at least their obvious protein each day for those 3 to 5 days, and get their baseline average. that is a place to start. And then you can keep building from there. Many women do learn that they are not getting enough protein. They're actually grossly overestimating how much they're eating. In fact, I've had a lot of women tell me they're, after doing their 3 to 5 days, they're only getting 50 grams of protein a day when they really should be getting well over 100. So a practical starting point for many women is just, how can I eat meaningful sources of protein every time I eat? It's not perfection. There's no extremes, or we don't want to go into extremes, just intentionality that needs to be behind this. So, some examples could include eggs with breakfast. If you do 2 eggs on a regular basis for every time you make eggs, add a third egg in there. Greek yogurt with, has added protein. So, make sure you get a good quality Greek protein, not the sugary, junky types that are maybe marketed for kids, that kind of thing. Cottage cheese can be a good source of protein if you are tolerating dairy. Chicken, turkey, beef, salmon, tuna, protein smoothies are great, especially if there's a time constraint. But I'm always a fan of people eating their food, chewing their food. Collagen combined with an additional complete protein. I think I mentioned that collagen is great in the coffee, but it cannot be considered a complete protein. Protein forward snacks, not just carbs alone, never eating a naked carb. Make sure you have protein in it. And as much as I love peanut butter, you cannot count peanut butter as a major source of your protein. It just does not add up to that much protein at the end of the day. And it also comes with a lot of carbs and a lot of fat. So we need to kind of balance everything out. This is where many women realize they're not actually eating enough food overall during the day. And sometimes women are unintentionally or not even aware that they're under fueling all day long and they're exhausted, right? This is what we're talking about. We have to nourish our body. And then what happens is that often people are overeating at night because the body is trying to compensate. And that is actually kind of the worst time to eat the types of foods that aren't as healthy and nourishing to us is at nighttime because you're less sensitive to insulin at that time of day. Adding adequate protein earlier in the day often improves your appetite regulation naturally, decreasing your cravings significantly when you put this in place on a regular basis. Now, I just want to briefly mention GLP-1 medications because this conversation matters tremendously right now. Many women on GLP-1 medications are eating dramatically less overall because no one has told them, unless you have jumped into my GLP-1 Success Blueprint course, that your protein matters, in particularly when you're on these medications. When you lose weight on these medications, if you are not diligent in eating enough protein and exercising, you are losing 30 to 40% of that weight in the form of muscle, which sets you up for metabolic disaster. So you need to understand that while weight loss may happen, muscle loss can happen too if protein intake and resistance training are not prioritized. And I'm seeing this all the time with the people that I'm working with on these GLP-1 medications. And this is one of the reasons that I'm very passionate about making sure everybody understands that preserving muscle is not an option. It is protective tissue. Muscle is a protective tissue. It influences your metabolism, your longevity, your blood sugar, your strength, recovery, and the quality of your life, especially as we age. And honestly, many women have spent years trying to become smaller when what their body actually needed was to be stronger. This is a major, major mindset shift that needs to happen. Now, before we wrap up, I want to say this very clearly. This is not about becoming fearful around food or hyperfixated on numbers. The goal is not perfection. The goal is nourishment. So supporting your body is going to support your energy, your hormones, your metabolism, recovery, and healthy aging. And protein is one of the foundational pieces that help support all of those things. If you're listening to this episode and realizing I'm probably not eating enough protein, you are definitely not alone. Here's where you need to start. I want you to start by thinking about what your ideal lean body weight is. And if you're not sure, kind of take a guess based on your height and where you have been, where you felt your absolute best. Now, let's say that that goal or that ideally body weight is 120 pounds. You should aim to add 120 grams of protein to your day over time in order to combat all the things that we've been talking about here today. Now, you can also live in ranges. You don't have to live in absolutes when it comes to this. You could go somewhere between 100 and 120 grams of protein each day in order to accomplish all those things we've talked about here today. That is probably a more sustainable way to live on a regular basis. Now, if you are someone who struggles with a chronic kidney disease, something like that, or been told by your provider that you can only eat a certain amount of protein, you need to default to what they're saying. This is for general purposes here for people listening and wanting to make sure that they go through these changes appropriately with the amount of protein they need to maintain their muscle and metabolic health. Most people are not taught this, and for sure women are not taught this. We've been told over time to, not worry about protein. We get enough protein and, for the love, we do not want to bulk up. That has been the thought process for so many years, and it is wrong information. So we need to understand that that physiology changes, especially after age 40, and we need to support it. So thank you for listening to today's episode. It's an important one. Start with where you're at and make it better. Just get to those goals for your protein, and you will start to feel improvements in all those areas that we've just gone over here today. If this was helpful, if this episode felt helpful to you, or if you know someone else that may need to hear this conversation, I recommend that you share this with them. And if you want more support and practical ideas and simple ways to increase your protein intake without obsession or overwhelm, check out my ultimate guide to protein. Link is in the show notes. And next time we'll be talking about why blood sugar matters even if you don't have diabetes. And this conversation connects directly with everything we talked about here today. I'll see you next time.